What's good, everybody? I'm Jędrek, he's Sodek, and today we're gonna talk about Modern prior to the RCQ season and the impact of MH3. Let's go! Alrighty, so as you all know, MH3 is roughly a month, or we are roughly a month into it, maybe a bit more than a month, more like like month and a half, 2 months. It's month after the PT. Okay. We're gonna go with that.
Better.
And by now, we all know that Nadu is broken. We all know that Nadu will be going out of the format on 26 August, which is in roughly 4 weeks, 3.5. So there is almost a whole August of modern RCQs because the RCQ season starts likely tomorrow when you are watching this, or even it already started a day ago or something, depending on whether...
No, they start on the 3rd.
They start on the 3rd. I just don't know when we upload this, but hopefully on the 2nd. We just wanted to take a minute and first of all reevaluate our top 10 list for MH3, because as we already said when we were making the list, there are some oversights and some mistakes that are bound to happen. And there has been some amount of that, not too much, I think.
I would say more than I expected.
I don't know. I guess the set is like deceptively powerful. Like when people said, "Oh, this is something that this is just a very powerful set. It's more powerful than MH3 because some people, or than MH2." I think Spike said that. People were like, "You're fucking crazy. There's no way it's more powerful than MH2." And well, I don't think it is. I think it's very, very close.
I think it's more powerful.
Okay, sure.
But I feel that like these cards are designed in a way that you can't play them in every deck to make them work. And like the best cards need to have all shells prepared for them. Like sometimes all these shells are just happen to be all the cards in colors in the set, see energy mid-range, but others you need to build your deck around them, which is somewhat unique and cool compared to MH2.
This set is definitely much more linear than MH3 was, or MH2 rather, or than Lord of the Rings or any other MH set, basically. And Lord of the Rings is an MH set, let's be honest. Like I guess because of this linearity, it's just like, oh, energy happened to be a good deck. So like a lot of those cards are seeing play in the same deck, and a lot of cards are very popular, which might play into the impression of a lot of MH3 cards making through into Modern. But yeah, I guess there is no real point discussing whether those two sets are which one is more powerful. They are both incredibly powerful. Let's just agree on that. And
I hope you like all these MH3 cards because they aren't going anywhere, and I expect that.
Except for
Nadu. Example, energy will be around for like 2 years at least, until the next MH set. Maybe it will change things, but so far, I would rather buy the best cards from this set and not regret doing so. Like I did in MH2.
Yeah. So basically, we're gonna record this whole video under the assumption that the card that gets banned on 26th of August is Nadu, and not some fucking Shuko or any other bullshit that Wizards may like pull off as they tried with Hogak. They're just gonna ban the problem. And even though it's not explicitly confirmed that Nadu will go, the card Nadu, it's extremely likely that they will just ban Nadu, I think, from the wording that Blake used of addressing the Nadu problem. So yeah, we're not gonna discuss whether they should ban Nadu or something else. Just assume Nadu is gone, and 3 weeks or 4 weeks time, and nobody gonna miss it except from people who want to win their RCQs.
Do you think that the format will change drastically after the Nadu ban? Because the more I think about it, the less sure I am. Because at first I was thinking that Nadu was stopping some decks to show its power. For example, Soul Trader. I was trying to play Soul Trader a lot, and it turned out that it's just a worse Nadu because you need more elements to work, and you are worse against disruption. But once it gets banned, maybe this will see play. But on the other hand, people who wanted to play different decks are already doing it, assuming that Nadu will be gone in some time. So do you think that it will change, or do you share the opinion that the format will remain somewhat, maybe not stale, but unchanged, excluding the Nadu ban?
I think it will be largely similar to what we see. I think decks that are mostly getting pushed out by Nadu are decks like Storm or maybe Living End. Like those other combo decks that are like similar in speed to Nadu, but Nadu is also a deck with tutors and hate pieces that they can tutor for. So I think that kind of holds those decks in check. Also, like, of course, at the PT, Storm had an abysmal win rate. Also because everybody had like 3 copies of Draniv Magistrate in their sideboards. And Storm is not a very good deck to play through hate, even though you can play like answers to hate, but they just make your deck a bit non-functional.
Yeah, we'll get to this later.
Yes.
Okay, so top 10?
Top 10 cards. On number 10, we have Spelllands in general as a category, with the 2 biggest highlights being the black lands that are played in Necro, so Boggart Troller and to some extent Fel the Profane, and Sink into Stupor. So Sink, I actually wasn't aware of how much play Sink sees until Sodek pointed it out to me before we started recording. The blue-black decks play Sink, the Twiddlestorm plays Sink,
Living End plays
Sink, like random blue-red Wizards deck will play Sink. Basically, Jeskai is the only deck that doesn't play Sink, the only blue deck.
Yeah, like I feel that Sink replaced Otawara as a action land of choice. Like sometimes free life will matter more than it should, but overall it's somewhat
Yep. Cool. And then of course Necro is made more functional because those lands like enhances your spell count and black cards for grief and pitch cards.
Buy them because like they're rather cheap right now, and they will see play moving forward.
Yep.
It's doing just harder to get them in the future. Okay, number 9 is the group of Storm cards, most likely Ral, Rabbi Medallion, and to some extent Glimpse the Impossible. It looked that designers of MH3 really wanted the Storm to come back, and they did a good job, in my opinion, because the deck is powerful, the deck can kill you on turn 3 when undisrupted, but on the other hand, like the Pro Tour showed that deck can be stopped. So if you like playing spell-based combo, you have an option to do so. The special highlight goes to Ral because the card has a very weird wording and has a lot of words on it, so it looks like they had to work a lot to make it work, and I feel they nailed it. It's a good balance between the power level and the giving the windows to answer it.
All right. So at number 8, we have Ugin's Labyrinth, and it's on at number 8, not higher, mostly because I think that it's some sort of a letdown. I think many people expected Labyrinth to see much more play, and it's basically only relegated to Devourer of Destiny decks at this point. So Tron, some other Eldrazi decks that we're gonna talk about later. So yeah, just nobody's playing Affinity. Nobody's playing some weird stompy-ish decks with, I don't know, like Null Drifter, Mirror Enforcer, and Chalice of the Void. Nobody's doing any shit like that. It's just an Eldrazi land. It's like a worse, for the most part Eldrazi Temple, but it's still Eldrazi Temple 5 through 8, so it's what you want in those Eldrazi decks to have more redundancy on that.
Okay, number 7 is Necro Dominance, the powerful enchantment that's very similar to one of the better cards in the history of Magic, Necropotence. And again, it looks like designers did a really good work to balance it out. So it's powerful. It's something ridiculous when you get it early and you combine with some disruption, especially free one, like Soul Spike or March with counters or Grief and so on. But while it's powerful, it's not OP, and it's possible to work around it and play through. So it single-handedly creates an archetype, or maybe it combines the scam and the coffers into one archetype that tries to do both unfair things and fill the rest with the fair cards, which is cool.
All right, so at number 6, we have Psychic Frog, which might be my favorite card from the set. Even if it's not the best card, it might be my favorite. I've played some amount with the Frog deck and think that this deck is insanely fun to play, even if it has a very large problem in Flage. To overcome. I think that the Jeskai deck in general, but largely Flage, is problematic for this deck. But we see it in Goryo as well. I think it's amazing card in Goryo, and some people are not playing Frog in Goryo for some reason, and I can't understand why. I see some tweets like, I don't play Frog because Goryo is A+B combo deck, and I'm like, well, Frog is an enabler to put your creature. It's basically an A, right? So, like, why? Just a very cool card, very powerful card, and I think that's how you should do. Like, I think Necro is cool, but also kind of meh, and Frog is exactly how I think you should make those, like, reprints, but not really reprints. Like, it's Psychatok, but it's a new Psychatok, and I think it's slam dunk. It's, I think, my favorite design in a very, very long time. Just such a great card, and also very, very powerful. So kudos to whoever designed Psychic Frog.
Speaking of good designs, number 5 is Ajani Nakat Pariach. I underestimated this card. I has to be honest with you. I thought that it's just a cool bear that sometimes will do another bear and that's it. But the fact how it affects the combat, that you all of a sudden can't attack because Ajani flips, and then it either creates more and more cards or creates more cards and is a removal spell. It just means board stalls. It works incredibly well when you have 2 Ajans because of the legend rule. You flip the first one. It's a really good card to flip from Amptraptor because it costs only 2 mana, and so on and so on. It's a perfect value card that found home in the energy shells, and I expect it to see even more play looking forward, because just good, how good it is.
And it kills so fast, so yeah. I think that's the biggest surprise, how fast Ajani kills. Yeah. Speaking of energy cards, we're gonna talk about the energy package, let's say, at large later, but now at number 4 we have Wrath of the Skies, which is a card I'm tremendously impressed with. When spoiler season rolled out, I guess, I thought that this will be a nice way to host Urza Saga, and like it will be a card that sees play, but I didn't think it will just completely replace Supreme Verdict as a sweeper of choice for control decks. And of course, you still play some Supreme Verdicts, because there are like Murktide regions that you want to kill, there is like Sun Cleanser you want to answer, but for the most part, Wrath of the Skies invalidates Urza Saga decks that are not Nadu, and Wrath of the Skies makes energy into just an insanely favorable matchup for Jeskai, and it's also a card that sees played in Goryo's sideboards. Just a very powerful card, a very powerful effect that I think has much bigger impact on the format than it might seem to somebody who's not like very familiar with it.
Okay, and number 3 is the energy package. We group together cards like Galvanic Discharge, Amtraptor, Guide of Souls, Static Prison, and so on. The fact that now we have the MH3 block constructed format in the form of energy plus good cards in red and white, sometimes in black as well, is something I didn't expect to happen at all. These cards are a combination of being either cheap removals that are very versatile, or good card advantage cards in the form of Raptor, and to some extent Amulet, but Amulet is not played that much these days, and really good one drops, Guide of Souls, and because of Guide of Souls, there's also Ocelot Pride that's surprisingly good because they both work incredibly well together. So if like that's the primer aggro deck of choice, and it's playable despite Flage being at the top, despite Wrath of the Skies being at the top. So that shows us how powerful the shell is. It's the combination of being very fast and having a lot of card advantage attached to all cards. So yeah, super hard to beat, and most likely it will be a tier 1 after the not mana.
Yep. Okay. At number 2, there is another card that's played alongside those energy cards that I just mentioned, and of course it's Flage. And our biggest miss, I think, for most people when they were reviewing MH3 cards, Flage is just... Some people say it's better than Uro, and honestly, the fact that I'm not instantly saying no to that is a testament to how strong Flage is. I think Flage invalidates so much things on its own. I think the main reason that Tamio, which is a card that I really like from the set, doesn't see that much play is that I've played with Tamio myself, and a couple of times I've played Tamio, my opponent just Flage for 3 mana, and I'm like, okay, this card is unplayable now. Like the presence of Flage makes cards like Tamio so much worse. It makes like the flashy, tempo-y, cheap damage game plan against control decks so much worse. It makes Boros energy into a deck with a very solid mid game against like other mid range deck, despite it being like a 1 and 2 mana deck basically. And also in combination with Arena of Glory, it just kills out of nowhere. It's just 12 damage out of nowhere, which is a very relevant thing. And both Jeskai and energy decks just get so much of that.
Yeah.
Flage is just...
Finally, control decks aren't cringe enough to kill with like random dudes and to kill pretty fast.
I think they are cringe because you have to stress about your mana, but that's a discussion for later. So what's number 1, Sodek? What's number 1?
Number 1 is, no surprise, Nadu. Nadu is broken. Nadu is... I can see it being the best deck, maybe not of all times, but...
I think it's the best modern deck ever, aside from Valky Cascade. Valky Cascade is
or
like...
maybe Oko Urza.
No, I think this deck is better than Oko Urza. I think it's... Have you caught the MTGO Masters League yesterday?
Yeah, Nadu won the no
ban list modern thing. Just like... I just think that... And those are like deck lists without any testing, right? I know that Arya, the person who won the first MTGO Masters League, she tested a lot for like comparatively a lot, maybe not tested because nobody's played No Ban is Modern, but thought a lot about her decks. I think that still you can optimize them further, and Nadu is just such a like concise package, such a small deck building cost of Nadu and Shuka, and then your deck has to be creatures, and that's all. And it not even has to be all creatures because of how much cards Nadu sees, and the fact that your lands are also creatures because of Dryad Arbor. It's just, I think it's the best deck that we've ever seen in Modern.
Yeah, like the fact that you can even be prepared, but what do you want to prepare? Like creature removal? You try to attack Nadu and it triggers. So even if you have the answers, then you will fall further and further behind. And they have so many tutors that they will find another Nadu or play just Shifting Woodlands. So I can't remember the deck that was so versatile.
Yes. As somebody, at this point, I've played against Nadu a good amount of times. Thankfully, it's not very popular on Modo.
Because of clicking, yeah.
Because of clicking and because of everybody kind of agrees that I will be gone in a month. So whatever, I'm not going to play this prelim with it or whatever. Some people still play,
but
of course.
On the other hand, a lot of modern challenges have like 3 or 4 Nadus in the top 8, yeah? So
sure.
There are some players who keep playing it and they are winning. And that's ridiculous.
What I wanted to say is, I guess we can use this as a segue to talk about decks, because we are already talking about Nadu, and Nadu is the first deck that we wanted to talk about.
So let's say to our viewers what we are going to do. We are going to talk about the top 10 of the current Modern format.
Top 11, I guess. We have Nadu and top 10 decks post Nadu, basically.
Okay, yeah, exactly. And we'll talk briefly about their
strengths, their weaknesses, yes, exactly.
And how they can adapt to the post-Nadu world.
Okay, so as we continue on talking about Nadu, as I said, I've played against it a good amount of times at this point, and I feel like Ring, the Jeskai deck, is like close against Nadu. But I wouldn't say I'm favored. I would say I'm close. I'm winning roughly half of my matches against Nadu. I think I'm 3-0 against Canister, which means a lot to me. And it's not even in the statistics, because I play him at our weeklies and I only collect data from Modo and from like large events in paper. But like, I think that Jeskai is a deck that's uniquely like of course the handshake list of Jeskai is something that they built to beat Nadu. And I think the combination of specifically Ring and Subtlety is a good recipe against them. Also Ring and Force of Negation to some extent. And this coupled with Wrath of the Skies dealing with like a lot of chaff that's on the other side of the board, makes it into a matchup that's like, Wrath of the Skies is one of those, I think it might be the only card in the format that's extremely punishing to Urza's Saga, and also just a good card against Nadu in general, against this deck as a whole, and not against Urza's Saga specifically. Because like Blood Moon and Alpine Moon, sure, okay, they kill Urza's Saga, but they are not a good cards against the Nadu combo deck. And Wrath of the Skies both deals with every permanent they can play, roughly.
And you are still 50-50, yeah?
And you are still 50-50 with a deck that's maybe not a hate deck, but a deck that's very, like, in general, I think this Jeskai deck should be really good against creature combo. Like, if we throw this Jeskai deck against, I don't know, Berving Pot, or some Abzan Company decks, or any other creature combo deck, or Yawgmoth, something like that, I think you are just winning much more than 50% of your matches against those decks. And Nadu, you are just 50-50 against
you know what's the biggest problem with Nadu? Nadu is so good by its own that you can imagine playing a hate deck to Nadu. For example, like when I was playing at the PT, Living End was considered a hate deck to Nadu. I had like 5-1 at the PT against Nadu. So I thought that maybe there's a hope for this format, because like there are enough hate decks to be around to keep it in check. But it turns out that Nadu is so compact. You need so few cards to work with this combo. And the rest of the deck is just tutors. So you can just tutor for hate cards to stop these hate decks. And like Nadu has no bad matchups because there are so few bad matchups for the Nadu. They can just prepare their sideboard to beat these hate decks, and the rest of the format will just die to the regular plan of the Nadu.
Yeah, I think that
according to the data, Nadu has no bad matchups.
Yeah, I think that Living End is not really a hate. Like, it's not what I understand by the word hate deck. Like, it was a common understanding back then that it's a good matchup for Living End. But hate deck to me is a deck that's built specifically with, like, hate deck is just a pile of, like, if you build some shitty Boros deck with a pile of Harsh Mentors and dumping matrices and stuff like that, that's a hate deck. And those decks are just like, even those decks won't be as good against Nadu as you think they will be, and you still have to play it against the rest of the format. I think I haven't checked the data, but how is Prowess against Nadu? Because I think that Canister said that in his experience, Prowess is a deck that is kind of problematic for him when he plays Nadu. Like the combination of like Slick Shot Show Off and just one interactive spell for Nadu is quite effective. The problem with Prowess is that Prowess is really bad against Flage. So I think that's what keeps Prowess in check, like in general. But yeah, I think that Prowess might be a deck that's like good against Nadu. Maybe not like super good, but I think you might be like you are. It's similar to like Nadu against those Storm decks that I mentioned before, that Nadu is equally as fast as Storm, give or take, while it can tutor hate cards. And that's what makes Storm a good matchup for Nadu. And I think it's like the other way around with Prowess and Nadu. Like Prowess, Goldfish of Prowess, especially if you are playing those like very all-in builds with Assault Strobe that some people still play, but not too many. So like Prowess can be very, very fast with Big Shot Show Off and like Mutagenic Growths.
Yeah, turn 3 kills are...
Yes, you can kill on turn 3 like Nadu, and Nadu doesn't really have hate card for Storm. There is or for Prowess. There is nothing you can really tutor. Think that Handshake used Shadow Spear this way. They can like tutor Shadow Spear and then have like a Benslayer Angel type
4/5 Nadu with lifelink
thingy, yeah. But Prowess is this deck in this configuration where like it's roughly as fast as Nadu, but it has meaningful interaction, while Nadu doesn't really have that much interaction against Prowess. So I think that you might look here if you want to like, if you don't want to play Nadu and you want to cheese your way through your RCQ season up until Nadu gets banned, and there is no like there isn't much Flages around in your area. Maybe Prowess is something you can play, but we're gonna talk about Prowess later.
If you have an option to play Nadu and you really want to win your RCQ, you should play Nadu.
Yes, I think so.
It's the best deck.
It is the best deck.
Okay. Now we can talk about the rest of the format.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Energy midrange. There are 2 builds that are around. Like there are some others. Like I will talk about it later. The first one and the most popular one is Boros. We just play the pile of energy cards, good red cards, for example, Blood Moon, Ragavan. You also play Flage because it's in colors.
And
Ajani,
Fable.
And sometimes Fable. Like
sometimes Fable, sometimes Bolts. Like the exact the exact configuration of like some lists play 12 1-drops, some lists play 4 lightning bolts for galvanic discharge and some static prisons, some lists play for fables, some lists play for blood moons, some lists play less blood moons.
Yeah, and if you and there's a lot of room for innovation to adapt to the current meta, and if you want to go even further, you can add colors to make the deck, for example, bent in the mirror. If you play Mardu, then you play Chtonian Nightmare. I don't know how to pronounce it.
Yeah, Ktonia Nightmare, and you play Bowmasters, and you
because
play...
Bowmasters kills Ocelot in a mirror, which is important.
Yeah, and you play Obnixilis, the adversary, which...
Yes.
I think the general idea is that it's supposed to be good against Jeskai, which is not really my experience.
It's just really good with Ocelot because you with the first
you can just copy it with Ocelot.
You create a devil, and the second copy you drain life, so you gain life, so you trigger Ocelot, so you can copy tokens, and if you have City's Blessing, you can also copy Obnixilis. So you have more and more Obnixilis, and more cats, and more drains, and more devils eventually.
Yes.
So if you keep it unchecked, you'll just lose every burster situation.
Yeah.
And advertisement moment, we have a cool primary cyber guide about energy soon on our website, so give it a look in the near future. It's so surprising to me that MH3 block constructed deck is good enough for Modern, and the deck is still cool to play. It's an aggro mid-range, which a lot of people like to do.
It's an aggressive mid-range deck, basically.
Yeah,
it's
the
like
deck that sometimes can kill you on turn 4,
it's
right?
scaled up to the format, of course, but I think this deck reminds me of Red-Black in Pioneer. Not the Vampires deck, but the old Red-Black deck. Of course, it's all scaled up to the fast speed of the format, but Red-Black was also like a mid-range deck with Fable, centered around Fable, and you could play a long game, but you also sometimes go Harvester into Bonecrusher into Sheoldred, turn 5 animate my Manland and kill you. Just those very aggressive starts, but you also have nice removal and good interaction. And nice mana base with manlands and stuff. And you even have Croxa instead of Flage in that deck, so everything just works together perfectly. I just think that energy decks are the biggest surprise for me as well. Not like mostly because like if you never played against them, if you never played this Modern format, they look so shitty. Like
the first time I saw it, I was like, okay, people are toying with stuff. Then I saw Morlys and what?
I did not respect those decks at the beginning of the format.
The biggest disrespect was Ocelot Pride. I like when I saw this card, like people played against me, I was like, okay, 1/1 for 1, let's go. You wanted to flex because you drafted it or whatever, and 2 turns later, opponent had like 4 cards. And a lot of life with Guide and City's Blessing coming together. It was hard. Also, I feel that Ocelot Pride is one of the reasons why Ragavan isn't played that much anymore. But like we will probably get into it.
Maybe because people want to play it over Ragavan in those decks, but I still think Ragavan is so important.
I feel that sometimes we are playing Ocelot and Ragavan, but the fact that Ocelot exists, it has first strike for 1 mana. Makes Ragavan so much worse.
I think Ragavan is a card that you really, really want in your bad matchups as Boros. Like, if I'm playing...
You can play Balloon,
Yes, if I'm playing against energy decks, if they don't have Ragavan, I just feel so chill. Like, I can't ever lose. Like, I've been running very hot against them. I'm 14-2 against Boros. I lost my second match just... 2 days ago in the top 8 of the challenge because I won game 1 very easily, and then I kept 2 hands for content, game 2 and game 3, that weren't very good. And it was 4 a.m. and I kind of wanted to go to sleep because I was 6-0 in Swiss, and then round 7 I got paired against House, and House was also 6-0, and she just moves to 0, sees what I'm playing, and scoops. And so I had like 45 minutes to do something, and I decided I kind of wanted to go to sleep, but I didn't. I just was binging YouTube, and then I lie down for 15 minutes. Then my alarm was set and they drank.
That's a common mistake.
I don't think it was a mistake. I think I felt much better after I went to my computer, but also I really didn't want to play that top 8. I was like, yeah, fuck it.
Yeah, your goal was to top 8, yeah?
Yeah, basically, like win game 1, game 2, I'm on a draw. I have a hand of 5 lands and 2 Wrath of the Skies, and I could fetch double planes, which is like really important against that deck. And I guess sure, it'll do stuff. And my opponent just kills me on 3 or on 4, I think. I think I was at 1 life on turn 3 or something like that. And then game 3, it's similar. I just kept like Flage, triple Force of Negation, 3 lands on the play, which is a good hand, I think. But I only drew lands and my opponent has nuts again. So yeah, like to me, you said that Ocelot Pride is the biggest surprise to you. To me, I think it's still Ejani. Ejani just kills so fast. And the fact that Ejani is good against sweepers, in the sense of you can flip it in response to the sweeper, and there aren't many sweepers that kill planeswalkers, really. There's basically...
Yeah, Wrath doesn't kill planeswalkers, which is super important.
The one that I think might see more play out of like red decks is Brotherhood's End, because it kills planeswalkers as well. So I think that Pyroclasm is also really good against that deck. I've played like one challenge with the Blue-Red Wizards deck like 2 weeks ago, I think, just to take a break from Jeskai. And I've had, I think, 3 Pyroclasms in my sideboard, and I was really impressed with how good they are against Boros, because it's just like 2 mana kill everything.
Yeah, Pyroclasm made a comeback after so many years.
Yes,
That's so cool.
it's kinda insane. And what's even more insane is that there is no black Pyroclasm of any sorts. Like there is no good
2 mana,
cheap
yeah.
black sweeper. There is Toxic Deluge.
That's probably a good thing, to be honest. So overall, energy will be popular. Energy will be very good. Be prepared. Buy your Sun Cleansers if you can, and have a plan against energy, because it's not like energy is unbeatable. Like Jeskai is quite good against it. Any form of unfair magic is quite good against it. Although energy, because it has such a good value plan game 1, it packs a lot of hate cards for combo decks post sideboard. So you shouldn't expect that you will just win by definition. You need to also be prepared and at least know what they are preparing for you to stop you. But overall, energy, I feel it's a really good deck to be at the top. I like when these type of decks are at the top of the format, because it just promotes good magic.
It's also just a very beatable deck. If you want to beat it, you will beat it.
Yes.
Likely. So I think it's a very solid deck, but also extremely beatable, which I think is as you said, a good qualities for decks that's on top of the metagame, because of course it's only my experience, and Goldfish doesn't do Modo and paper metagames separately, but it feels to me like on Modo it's a deck I play against the most by far, the energy decks. Yeah. There's just so much people playing energies. So, yeah.
Okay, Jędrek. Energy done. The second deck on the list, probably the closest to being the most popular. The second most popular deck, in my opinion. And the second most played, and most likely the second most powerful one, is Jeskai Ring. And Jędrek, you have X minutes. I'm listening.
Sure. Well, I think I played against Goryo more than I play against Jeskai, but it's fair that Ring is somewhat popular. Maybe I don't play against Jeskai that much because I'm one of the Jeskai players, so I'm one of those people who is in the challenge with Jeskai, so I'm this like 1.5% of the metagame that I don't face as a Jeskai player, because I'm that metagame, basically. But yeah, I think that this deck is really good, and it a bit pains me that it's this good and I have to play 3 colors, which I hate. There is you know how many gray hair I had to dye at my barber today, and how much sleepless night I had because of constantly thinking about playing around Blood Moon. It's insane. It's just you are keeping a hand and you are thinking, what if my opponent has Blood Moon in their deck? You don't even know what they are playing. And if they are showing Giganta, it's just, oh fuck, now I have to do this and this and this, and I have to play this game so twisted just because, like, in my experience, the energy matchup is so good if they don't Blood Moon you. Like, you can beat Blood Moon. You have a good amount of ways.
Celestial Purge, yeah.
You have Celestial Purge. You have Prismatic Ending. You have 2 planes in your deck, so you can cast this card, Wrath of the Skies, sitting right on my desk. And you can cast it against under the Blood Moon. You can bounce it with Teferi. I think Blood Moon is the reason why Force of Negation is still in my deck post-board against Boros. If you know that your opponent is not playing Blood Moon, throw that shit out and don't have Force of Negation against energy post-board. But some people do that. Some people play, like, especially Mardu decks, they can't really play Blood Moon. Like, you can, but you'd rather play like Charmos probably against like Tron and stuff. Against those decks, fuck Force of Negation, you don't need it. And yeah, Jeskai is just such a what I'm missing. Well-versed, very versatile deck basically. And like when I was playing the blue-white deck before MH3, and people ask me like for months, because of course there was this huge build up to MH3 and this huge anticipation of people basically ever since Lords of the Ring was released. Like even at the end of last year, people were like, oh, Modern Horizons 3 is coming in half a year. What would you want to see in that set? And stuff like that. And things that constantly were mentioned by me were a good removal spell, because I fucking hate late line binding and I don't want to play that card if I can help it. And second of all, a good source of life gain. And Flage is an extremely good source of life gain. It's insane how well it stabilizes with Ring. It's a bit of a removal, but it's not really like. Of course, it is a removal, but it's not enough of a removal by itself. But Galvanic Discharge, this card just
all good.
Very good. One card.
I also feel that it's good because Amulet Titan isn't playable that much. With
yeah,
more
but you know why Amulet is not playable?
Because of Nadu, yeah. Ooh, because of Wrath? Okay, I was thinking about...
Well, Nadu, of course,
I was thinking
well,
about Nadu is the real problem, and Wrath is a problem too, yeah. Like, if I start Urza's Saga Amulet and you
just Wrath them, like... Look, I spend a lot of time with Canister, and Canister anytime is like, oh, maybe I'll play Amulet. And he's like, kurwa, no, because Schmidt will just turn up with his Wrath of the Skies, and how will I ever win a game of Magic? And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna definitely play 4 if I happen to pair into you. But yeah, like one card that I think I was kind of hoping to be higher on was the Tune the Narrative, which I think is just not a very good card on raid. Like 1 mana to draw card is bad. It's just not what you want, but you need some to turbocharge your Wraths, especially in matchups where early Wrath is important. Like for example, it's basically Splinter Twin. If you are playing against like Nadu or something, if your opening hand is Tune, Wrath, and lands to cast Tune on 1 and Wrath on 2, it's just so good. It's just... You
can 2-for-1 opponent. Wow.
2-for-1? They play their 1-drop, their play their Erza's Saga and their 2-drop, and you just kill everything. Okay, you kill their land.
Okay. If you 3-for-1, that's good.
If you kill their land, it's important, I think.
Okay, I think overall, Jeskai is good. We know this. Jeskai is somewhat popular, and it will be popular moving forward.
I think that the biggest threat for Jeskai after the Nadu ban is the emergence of not really Tron, because of course even after 10 years, people are so scared of Tron because their friends used to IO Vugin for Emrakul the Aeon Storm 10 years ago. Tron is a close/good matchup right now. Like, if you are playing against the colorless Tron decks as Jeskai, I think you are favored. Because you play the ring, they can't do anything. You cast your free spells, you untap, you win. The real problem is World Breaker. Be it from Tron, be it from like some other rampy Eldrazi decks, doesn't really matter. I think the best way to win with Jeskai or against Jeskai is to limit
mana, yeah?
is to attack the mana, is to limit their capability to cast their spells. Because Jeskai plays some of the best spells in the format. Ring, Flage, pitch spells, just Wrath of the Skies, just it's insane card quality. I think by far the highest card quality in the format. But also, its mana base is a bit shaky, and if you can go after the mana base, I think it's a very good way of attacking the deck. So Blood Moon out of the energy decks. Some deck that can play Chthonian Nightmare and loop Fulminator Mage, also pretty good. If those decks are good, of course. But it's a nice idea to attack it. Maybe you play Mardu energy deck and you play Fulminator in your sideboard and you play it with Nightmare. Who knows? Maybe that's
like Harbinger of the
Seas can get you from time to time, yes. And the Wordbreaker / Sowing Mycospawn Eldrazi decks of various sort can be problematic. I think Tron more so than the Ram decks, because Tron has sheer amount of mana to recur Wordbreaker turn after turn after turn. And if you are playing Jeskai in months' time and Nadu is gone, I wouldn't be surprised if you just play 4 Charm or 4 Consigns in your sideboard. I think you are so good against so many decks already that you can just devote half of your sideboard to Tron. It's fine. Because, like, what else will you play? You can even play main deck Consign, which is something that I think might be good.
Because you can counter Flage, yeah?
You can counter the Flage Sacrifice trigger. You can counter your Subtlety or Solitude Evoke trigger. You can counter Life Loss trigger from Ring. There are just so many ways that you can counter a bunch of different things in your deck to make them better. And you can counter opposing rings. You can pitch it to your blue pitch spells. Consign is one of the most surprising cards to me in the set. How versatile it is. Because we all knew it will be good against Eldrazi. But it's just card that I happen to bring as a one-off in so many different matchups. Against Necro Dominance, I have one Consign in my deck. Sometimes you will get Necro trigger. Sometimes you will get Ring. Sometimes you will get Grief trigger. Whatever. Sometimes against Goryo I will have one to get Atraxa trigger if my main deck cards are bad and I have to put something in. Just a pretty versatile card. But yeah, that's basically it. Jeskai, great deck. I think if that's your style, I think it's the best choice after Nadu is gone, just because of how good it is against energy, which I think will be the most popular deck. I think it's really, really good against energy. And it has a lot of close matchups moving down the list that we're going to talk about. I think Goryo is close. Like all those decks, Goryo, Necro, Tron decks. Against all of those decks, I'm roughly 50%.
But also you have tools to adapt to them.
You can beat, because of how powerful, once again, your cards are, you can skew towards beating any deck post-board. You can just have 4 or 5 cards. Like my current configuration, for example, I wanted to be better against Goryo. And I started winning more when my sideboard is double extraction, for example, against Goryo. Jeskai is a great deck. I think it's the best control has been in Modern since Uro, basically. Since the days of Uro. So even though fuck Uro, control was pretty good back then. And I think it's good again now. And I'm very excited to see how much time we have left with Ring and Flage and for how long we can do that.
Okay, moving forward. Goryo, it was already mentioned a few times. And this is one of the 3 decks from the list that doesn't use that many MH3 cards.
Yes.
It still uses Psychic Rock, but the core of the deck remained more or less the same. the deck can win against everything because of how good the end of turn to discard thing, turn 3 Goryo with Ephemerate is. It also has other lines of attack, most likely Solid Ephemerate, Grief Ephemerate, or just grind with
Fallagy Archaeologist.
Yeah. You can also switch after sideboard to play a bit less of the Goryo and a bit more of the strange control deck, which is kind of cool.
Especially against those creature decks. Like Wrath of the Skies is a card that's very popular in the sideboards of Goryo. I think that Goryo is maybe the most powerful deck. Like in terms of raw power of its capabilities, of its potential. It's the maybe not most powerful. It's the scariest deck in the format to me.
And the biggest weakness of the deck is that you can only play 4 Goryos. Imagine if you could play 6.
Definitely,
that would be insane.
Yeah. The access to the card Goryo's Venus is definitely the biggest bottleneck in the deck because you have to resort to cards like Priest of Fell Rights to have more ways of bring back your creatures, or
Goryos,
you have maybe Emperor of the Bones is a card that somebody people play.
But it's like much worse.
They're all much worse than Goryos, and by far the best surveillance deck. In the format.
The deck started to be a thing after Surveillant got added, because if you crack First Chance for 3 times, you have something like over 20% to flip a creature.
Yeah, you have the standard build is 4 Atraxas, 2 Griselbrands, and if you fetch for a Surveillant,
so
you have
6 out of 52, sorry, then it's 6 out of 51.
Well, you don't count it that way. You do it, the only 2 cards that are out of your deck, because some of those monsters can be in your hand. It's you fetch, so it's 1 card, and you get a Surveillant, that's 2 cards, so you have remaining 58 cards in your deck, and it's 6 out of 58, so it's roughly 10%. And I think if you do it 3 times in a row, it's 27% to hit, I think. When our friend Ardos played a lot with Goryo before MH3, and he won a good amount of the deck as well. I think he did the math. He's a very mathy person, just like I am. So yeah, he is.
Didn't expect.
I
expect like 6 out of 10 maths, not.
No. I think he's the only person I've met like in person, I guess, that can calculate stuff in his head faster than I can, and like in general has a very good memory and stuff. So yeah, Ardos is very mathy, and I think it was 27% to hit, something like that. So like between 25 and 30% to hit.
Okay, the biggest risk of Goryo, in my opinion, is that the fact that it's getting more popular. Although, imagine a situation when at the Pro Tour probably Matt Sperling went 10-0 with the Goryo, borrowed it to Kai Bude, and he won the Sunday PTQ. And yet Goryo is not more popular on Magic Online. Like some people just refuse to play it. I can get it because the deck is kind of weird. But it's really powerful, and while you get more recognition, I feel that people will start playing more Surgical Extraction, because like while the Goryo deck is quite powerful, Surgical Extraction is a brutal answer to it. And
I think the best card against them. I think the best card against them is Leyline of the Void.
It's good, but it can be bounced with the Fairy. Yeah.
Surgical can be griefed.
True.
Like Surgical is very good against them, but I think Leyline is the best card against them, especially out of a deck that can protect this Leyline. So if you are playing Leyline, you are likely playing black in your deck, so you can discard this Teferi. You can, if you are playing, ideally you are playing also a counter magic deck with Leyline, so you can counter the Teferi if they top deck it. But Leyline just makes all of that, I think, all of those things so much harder for them. Surgical is of course good, and it's likely the best like low effort card you can put in your deck against them.
Yeah,
but
every deck can play 1 or 2 surgicals and randomly draw it, yeah?
And I think surgical is is at maybe not all time, but at least a couple years high. Yeah, like I think that surgical inflate is reasonable. I think that's what you used to do in Uro days. You just get random surgicals on Uro. And it's like one of the biggest pains for Jeskai as well. Like how many non-flage finishers you play, because sometimes your flage will be surgical. So do you devote one of those land slots to Hall of Storm Giants or Castle Ardenvale or some other bullshit that can kill your opponent? Do you play more Solitudes?
Make your mana much worse, yeah?
Yeah, do you just play more Solitudes and stuff like that? So I think surgical is very good now. Like comparatively speaking to how bad it usually is. It's just a card that I think I board out. I board in my surgical like in half of my matches, I think, these days.
That's a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think it's good in the mirror. It's good against Goryo. I think it's okay against Nadu because of Shifting Woodlands and how hard it is to interact with Shifting Woodlands with like traditional means of interaction.
Yeah. That's
So yeah, Goryo, extremely powerful. Please play Frog if you play this deck. It makes it even more threatening. And yeah, just I think for a like, it's weird. It's definitely a weird deck, but it's also very well rounded for how weird it is, I think, because it has a decent like mid-rangey plan with like elementals and ephemerate and frog. Because of ephemerate and discard, like ephemerate is so good at protecting your creatures as well. Like, of course, you don't really want to ephemerate your frog with like 3 counters on it, but still you save it from removal and you draw cards again, and eventually you'll grow it again. So yeah, I think Goryo is a great deck, and
if you want to master something that's unusual and try to attack from not the most obvious angles, I feel Goryo is the best.
I think I would definitely recommend Goryo with us in your wheelhouse, because it's, I think, also a deck it's fairly tricky to play, but it's, I think, even more tricky to play against. And if you go to your RCQ and like half the people in the room never played against Goryo, which might happen at the RCQ, I think you are so much more favored than you would usually be with the Goryo deck, just because of like their unfamiliarity with how your deck works. Like if they don't know, you can go, turn 1 Surveil, Griselbrand into graveyard, turn 2 Goryo, or
that's sound unlikely, but can happen.
Or like,
okay,
maybe not turn 1, but in general, if they don't play around end of turn Surveil and Goryo, like for example, I don't know, you chill with Teferi and you can't play your looting effect on my turn because I have Teferi. Sure, but I can fetch and fuck you because I just hit one of my 10%er and I just kill you. It's just...
Okay, moving forward. Necro Dominance. We saw a strange hybrid of Cabal Coffers and Mono Black Scam decks in the form of Necro Dominance. So Necro is either a broken deck or close to being broken, or a really bad one.
It's both at the same time.
All comes down to if you can deploy Necro Dominance and start drawing cards.
Or ring.
One ring is also good, but a bit more fair because it's slower and more expensive, and people are more...
Sure, you'd rather cast Necro, but the ring is also very good.
Yeah.
This deck.
And because of how high variance the deck is of its draws, I'm not the biggest fan of it, although I tend to lose a lot to it, especially to more experienced players who are not keeping bad 7s without Necro. I feel that this is one of the decks when the deck is named after the card, you should somewhat aggressively mulligan to it, or just keep hands that can handle a lot of turns to buy your turn.
So basically
the combo is you can draw with the Necro, but the most important combo is Necro Dominance and Shouldered, because then you go up in life for every card you draw, and You just do whatever you want.
Yeah, you draw your deck in 2 turns or something. So basically, Necro is a broken card engine deck plus disruption deck. So you have to you should mulligan your 7-card hand if it doesn't have. Ideally, Necro, but Ring will suffice as well, and some sort of disruption. Basically, you want to trade resources until everybody or both players have 0 cards in hand or like close to 0 cards, and you play your Necro or your Ring and you win from that. That's your game plan. And as I said, I think the deck is broken but also shitty. It's also a deck that I heard many reports from multiple players I respect a lot, that is the hardest deck they've ever played, because of how hard it is to like get the exact right amount of cards to draw from Necro every turn.
Yeah, that's tricky.
So, and that is like, okay, sure, you can just draw, like you can have your rule of thumb. I always draw to have 5 cards, or I also always draw like to have 7 cards or whatever, but also like
this card too, yeah?
Yes, so often it will be like, oh, I drew 1 card too many this turn, so in 5 turns I will have 1 life fewer than I should have. It's just like, it's very, very hard to like just assess everything and think about everything. And I think that this deck might look straightforward in terms of, oh, you just cast this card and you cast broken engine, card drawing engine, and you win. But it's also, I think, as you said, the range of keeps it's something that, because it's, as you said, hybrid of coffers and scam to some extent. Like many scam players used to say that the hardest element of scam is mulliganing. You just mulligan you know which mid 7s you have to mulligan and which mid 7s you can keep in which matchups. And Necro is exactly like that. You have to mulligan very well. You have to navigate your Necro very well. It's just, yeah, it's a weird deck. Just like Goryo is, like in a different way, I guess, but it's a deck that I think is, both strong and shitty, as we said multiple times at this point.
Yeah, let's go to the other one. And this one is both, let's say, fan favorites, because the group of players who play this deck are very dedicated, but also there's a chance that these players will have to redefine what their deck is trying to do. I'm talking about
what
Tron.
are you talking about? Oh,
I'm talking about Tron. I'm talking about
got me here.
Tron / Eldrazi, because of the Ugis Labyrinth, and the addition of new Eldrazi and the addition of Kozilek's command, which in my opinion is the key to the current.
It's extremely powerful, definitely.
Yeah, this card, the flexibility it gets, it's beyond the roof. Like, it's good on turn 2 if you play it for X1 or X2 because you have Eldrazi Temple or Ugis Labyrinth. It's good on turn 5 because you, for example, in response to land destruction, you can just create a bunch of Scions and play an expensive thing anyway.
It's likely your best top deck on turn 10 because
you can just
stack your deck essentially.
Yeah, imagine you can just basically pay 2 mana and make Scry X draw, because you can create Scions and make a really huge preordain, and then you can use these Scions to cast whatever you find. Like, for example, if you have 9 mana, you have 7 looks for Rollis Dust or something. So that's really powerful. Even 8 looks, because you can go all to the bottom. Yeah. So that gives the deck the flexibility it needs, and the raw power in the mid lane game, so you never run out of gas.
And an interaction that you sorely missed before in Tron decks, because you had to resort to cards like Dismember or Warping Whale or Spatial Contortion, and those cards were like, they were removal spells, but they didn't contribute to your main game plan of assembling your mana engine.
Because of how bad these removals were, you didn't you killed a creature, but the opponent was able to play another creature, and you were in the same situation, but without the Tron collected because you spend mana on the removal, right? So now, because of the Kozilek's command, all decks are playing Eldrazi Temple. All decks are playing Ugin's Labyrinth because of 2 mana. Like Soulland on turn 1 is really good because then you can play Talisman on Mindstone and play, for example, the one on turn 2. That's really good. And the question is, are Tron lands even needed? Because I was playing a lot of Eldrazi Tron and Eldrazi Ramp in the last few weeks. And I'm not sure that Tron lands are needed anymore because you get your fast stars with Eldrazi Temple and Eye of Ugin, and Ugin's Labyrinth. You can also start adding lands that gives you colors. That means that your sideboard and main deck can be much better because all of the sudden you can add some fetch lands and add green because you can play, for example, Utopia Sprawl or Mana Vault Rumble. This like the new card from
Malevolent
RCQ,
Rumble, yeah.
Yeah. Or you can, because of green, you can play Wordbreaker and Mycosynth. This new Eldrazi. You remember the name?
Sonic Mycospone.
Yeah, Sodek and Jędrek. I was close. Or you can
Almost as close as Mana Vault Rumble.
Yeah, we know all what's going on. Yeah, you can play red splash for Kozilek's return. You can play even blue splash for Null Drifter if you really want, or white splash for good sideboard cards like Sun Cleanser, Dranic Magistrate, and so on. So there's a lot of room if you cut Tron lands and rely more on these Eldrazi lands. Then you can accept that you won't have 7 mana on turn 3 and 10 mana on turn 4 sometimes, but you will most likely have 4 or 5 mana on turn 3 and 7 mana on turn 4, and it still be good enough, yeah, and the trade may be worth it. Still, these are Tron decks, so they were naturally Ramp decks are naturally disadvantaged against creature combo. So the deck by definition was bad against Nadu, but because of the Eldrazi team, it played all its dust. So energy was somewhat a good matchup. Jeskai is, like you said, it's close. Like, or comes down to if you have this Charmo post sideboard or not.
Yeah, it all depends on the exact version of the Eldrazi Temple deck that you are facing and the sideboard of Jeskai. Those are two main factors. Yep. And
there's also there's Goryo, but you have Kozilek's command to keep the graveyard in check. Although it can be tricky because they can just end of turn discard into Goryo. But you have a lot of play against many different decks, excluding Nadu. But Nadu, once Wadun will be gone, I expect Eldrazi Ramp to get even more attention. And
yes.
I think the deck is solid.
I think those decks are strong, yeah.
I don't want to say that it's broken or tier 1 or something, but if you like this type of rampy, controlish magic with like huge high makers from the top, then Eldrazi Ramp and maybe Tron. Right now I think that I would play just Eldrazi Ramp, not Eldrazi Tron. But I need to test it more because like when I was playing Eldrazi Tron, I was collecting Tron only when I had Expedition Map plus 2 Tron lands in hand. That was the only moment when I was going for the Tron, and otherwise I was when I, for example, had map and 1 Tron piece, it was much better for me to go for Eldrazi Temple because it made my Kozilek's command much better. So
yeah,
if that's the case, maybe Tron lands aren't needed and Eldrazi Temple is all you need.
You should play maybe more of a Stompy deck, basically. Like you are more interested in casting your 4-drop on turn 2 or 3 than you are at casting your 7-drop on turn 3, basically. That's what you are after. And that's what basically Tron was, right? Like Tron at the end with One Ring and Karn, the great creator, turned from 7-drop tribal into 4-drop tribal last year at the PT Lord of the Rings. That's what Handshake did, right? They're just playing 4 drops ahead of schedule rather than 7 drops ahead of schedule. And that's why I think cards like Blood Moon and Alpine Moon are significantly worse against those decks than it used to be. And right now, I think Alpine Moon is just a trap. You just shouldn't play this card ever. It doesn't do anything, basically.
Dumping Sphere too, to be honest.
Dumping Sphere is a, Dumping Sphere
it's okay, but...
is a card that you want to play only if you want to... If those decks are mostly Tron decks, I think. And also if you want to, like, conserve your sideboard space and you want something that's good against the big mana decks and Storm, if Storm is popular at the same time. But if Storm is not popular, just play other cards. Like, or if you are in the colors that like doesn't have, I don't know, we are playing a mono green deck and you just don't have better ways of answering Tron lands than Dumping Sphere.
Okay, and there's also another combo aspect of the Eldrazi in the form of Furwe Bridge. Instead of just playing Eldrazi, you play Furwe Bridge and Emrakul and try to kill out of nowhere. It's quite good against energy decks, according to my knowledge. It gives you a fighting chance against Nadu, but Nadu will be gone. So I'm curious if this plan will remain popular. I like the fact that the Furwe Bridge deck works super well with Ugin's Labyrinth because you either ramp to your Furwe Bridge or use your expensive creatures to make Ugin's Labyrinth always a soul land. So
yeah, and it has an extra synergy with Ulamog because
yes, that's true.
If you exile a bigger, like Ulamog sees the card you exile to your Ugin's Labyrinth for the Annihilator and counters purposes. So if you exile Emrakul, then your Ulamog is 22/22 with Annihilator 15, which is likely lethal. Unless your opponent has 3 copies of Ocelot Pride and billion tokens, it's likely lethal.
Yeah, or Flare of Malice. I had the game when opponent went for Ulamog and I forced them to sacrifice. That was fun.
Not very nice.
Okay, so if you like ramp decks, Eldrazi ramp, in my opinion, is for you. Okay, next one is
I think, last thing, I think that Eldrazi Temple is my pick for the biggest winner of Nadu ban. I think that those will be decks that will gain the most, and you should be scared of them more so than you are now. And how scared you should be now, I don't know.
Now, when I was playing Eldrazi, I was 1-5 against Nadu, and I won once only because opponent went timeout.
Okay.
That was the only plan to win, yeah? And without Nadu in the format, I feel that the Eldrazi deck will have tools to fight against everything else, and it will be easier to stop other combo decks with more like direct answers, because the biggest problem with Nadu was that there wasn't one good card to stop it, because the Stonebrain was too slow. Point removal is quite useless because they can just find another Nadu. So it was really hard to stop it. Okay, Murktide?
Yep, Blue-Black Murktide, Blue-Black Frog, however you want to call the deck. It's basically the evolution of the Blue-Red Murktide deck that we've had for 3 years now in the format. And there's a small subset, I guess, of people playing Blue-Black Ring, which like shares the same core, but they have rings and some shield reds. There's one guy, Jake TMS on Nadu, plays a lot of this deck, has some successes in the challenge. I think he won back-to-back challenges with it. Or maybe it was one and it was doubled by Goldfish, because that's what Goldfish does recently. But still, he has a good amount of success with that deck. And it's the only other deck when I see Falaji Archaeologist, other than Goryo. Like, he plays Falaji to find Ring and other cards, and also he plays 4 Flare of Denial. So he has like Falaji to sacrifice to Flare. And at some point he cut those Falaji and he started losing much more. And so he added it back and started winning again. So Falaji might have a home. And honestly, like, we are not gonna do Bloombarrow review really for Modern. But there is the other one with Offspring. You can play 8 now. And you can really enable this Flare of Denial, which I think if you have enough enablers for it, it's just a very powerful card.
Is the Bloom Barrow version also puts the graveyard or to the bottom?
No, I think graveyard, but I don't remember. Maybe
This
bottom.
Would be insane then.
No, I think it's bottom. I think it would have been. It probably would be played in Goryo if it was graveyard, right?
Yes, like for sure.
So it's
I'll
probably
check it.
bottom.
So there are like two builds of blue-black, and the first one is without Tamio, and the second one is with.
Most people play 0 Tamios in the deck, and I think that's correct also. Like most lists I've seen having success play 0 Tamios, and I think that's what I would do as well. Sadly, because I like Tamio very much. Yuta Takahashi, of course, plays this deck at the PT, and I really liked it, and I was very sad with my performance in the Amsterdam Open, so I built this deck to play it in the Secret Lair events the next day, and I managed to win my shiny Murktide. That's, I think, somewhere. I don't think I lost it, but it's somewhere here. Let's see if it's in the box. I think it is. A very nice Murktide.
Is it nice?
It's nice how much money I will get for it.
Okay, that's a better.
But it's not a very pretty cardboard. No, it's not. It looks very dorky. And yeah, I think this deck is extremely fun to play if you are somebody who, like, I don't know, plays mostly Legacy, and all you did for the last 10 years was casting Brainstorm, Days, Wasteland, and Delver of Secrets. That's the deck for you. I also think that this is a really hard deck to play in the terms of your games are just so close, so much on like a razor's edge all the time. Like, I've had multiple games. I've played like 20 matches with this deck, maybe 30. And I've had so many games in this little sample size of like, okay, I have 0 cards in my hand. I have 0 cards in my graveyard. I have exact right number of counters on my Psychic Frog, and it gains flying from exiling my last cards from my graveyard, and my opponent is at 0 life after I attack. Like, everything on exacts. I won games like, I don't know, my red-green Eldrazi opponent plays 1 ring on 18 life, and I never remove it. And they die 4 turns later to their ring, dinging them for 3 damage because I used everything in the right way to, like, did just everything, squeezed every last point of value. If I didn't discard this card to my Psychic Frog on turn 2, on turn 9, I wouldn't have enough damage, basically.
Yeah, that's like going all in on frogs is scary, but somewhat.
It's not even going all in. It's like sometimes you go all in, and that's like scary, but it's also like, okay, you just go all in against Bolt or whatever. But it's like, okay, so I attack now on turn 3. Should I make this frog a 2/3 instead of 1/2? Those are the toughest decisions. Like, how much will it matter? And yeah, it's like, it's a deck you shouldn't play if you just want to sling cards and play on autopilot. This deck is...
There's also one big problem. It should have a tough matchup both against Energy and Jeskai.
I think Energy especially.
It will be an uphill battle, that's for sure.
I think Jeskai is manageable. I think Energy is the real problem. And this is why I wasn't really interested in playing this deck more, because of how much Energy is on Modo. Energy is really tough to beat, especially for the Tamio version, which I think is the reason why you don't play that many Tamios in that deck anymore. I think if you want to play this deck, you should leverage the power of one-offs and how much deck selection this deck has. So if you are playing blue-black, play like main deck Memory Deluge, like 1 copy. Because you have cantrips, you can get into it to have something for Energy. Because otherwise it's very hard to beat that deck. There was
Toxic Deluge or Memory Deluge?
Toxic Deluge, yes. Just a sweeper of some sorts. And there was a big tournament in Spain last weekend, Impact Returns, and there was like 250 people almost in the modern main event. And the finals were Nadu versus blue-black. And the blue-black deck that won that, or went second in the tournament, had a fairly interesting list. I would change some things, but if you are interested in in the blue-black decks, or in general in how modern paper tournaments look like. You can go check it out. Menguchi tweeted about it many times, so just go to his Twitter. And yeah, I think that blue-black Murktide is extremely fun deck to play, and it's also solid. I don't think it's great.
Fun, yeah.
I don't think it's like... I think Flage is a big problem for the deck, but it can be managed to some extent.
Do you think that Surgical should manage the problem?
Yeah, I think like you play one Cling to Dust in your main deck and you sometimes will snipe it. You play like 2 Surgicals in the sideboard or maybe 1 Surgical, and like with enough things, sometimes you will just, get your frog roll in and you will just string enough like subtleties and fatal pushes to deal with that Flage.
On the other hand, they can just have 7 mana and play Flage into escape SAP, so you won't have an option to even exile it.
Well, you can do it if you are smart. You can like with sacrifice trigger on the stack, you can kill it and then surgical.
Okay.
You can deal with it in different ways, but yeah. I think that if that's your jam, this deck is definitely viable, and I think you should give it a try because you will have a lot of fun.
Okay. The number 8 of our list is Storm. Storm, the deck that had a terrible showing at the PT. It showed that it's not tier 0. It's a typical fight. Like I see it for so many years already that there's a new linear all-in combo deck that's trying to do things. So people are playing it more and more. At first it wins a lot, then people starting to realize that we need to address some cards to stop it. Then people overreact and play too many hate cards, and then the linear combo deck stops winning. All of a sudden people think, okay, it's not a problem, no one will play Storm. They pack out their hate, and there's a perfect moment to attack. And Storm lines up perfectly into this scenario. We just saw the Storm on this very bottom moment of its sine wave effect. So it's still a good deck. It still is capable of winning tournaments if the meta is unprepared. For example, I wouldn't main it as my deck of choice and hope that my local RCQ meta game that's filled with friends I play week to week won't be prepared to stop me, because it just won't happen. In my opinion, it's a really good deck if you can surprise everyone and attack the meta game that won't have any Dranic Magistrates or anything. Because the good thing about Storm is that if you want to stop energy, if you want to stop... Okay, Surgical Extraction can be annoying, but it's beatable. If you want to attack Eldrazi, if you want to attack like any other cards, like the cards don't line up that well. If you want to beat Storm, you need to have cards that directly attack this deck. Maybe outside Dumping Sphere that somewhat attack the big mana decks as well, yeah? But the rest, not that much. So it's just a decision of the whole of the meta if respect Storm enough or not. Right now, I saw that there's a player, Hugo Freitas 1, probably.
Hugo Freitas 1, of course. A known Storm player.
Yeah.
He used to win a bunch with it when Gift Storm with Baral was good as well. So he's a legacy Storm player, basically. Not legacy as a format, but legacy as a long-time Storm player.
Yeah, that was a cool one. And he just keeps winning. So that's the signal that Storm is not dead. And if that's a good time, if you feel that people won't be prepared, go for it. It's really good. And I feel that the Nadu matchup was at first good because you were faster. Then it was kind of bad because Nadu could prepare a good cyber strategy to stop it once Nadu is out. Then the question is, how is good versus energy? again, it should be good because you win game 1 and then you try to fight through the hate. There's Jeskai. Unless you have Drained Magistrates, I feel that Storm should be advantaged.
Yeah, I think it's slightly favorable for Storm if Jeskai completely disrespects it. Which is the case right now, basically.
You can like the same stories with Goryo. Goryo can pack Drained Magistrates and you'll have tough time, but if all they are trying to do is to grief you, then you will easily rebuild and win the game.
Yeah, this Storm deck is very good against any sort of like 1-for-1 basis interaction. So it's good against counter magic to some extent. It's much better against counter magic than Gift Storm used to be. It's much better against this card as well because all your cantrips are divinations.
This card is close to
meaningless.
Like if you, I don't want to say meaningless.
This card with clock is okay, but just this card and sit there, do nothing. It just does nothing.
Just no. Like you very quickly go to the moment when the Storm has like 5 lands, and they just start drawing this Vrens Resolve and just keep drawing 2, draw 2, and like at one turn they will flip, for example, Ritual Land and then another Vrens Resolve and so on and so on, and they eventually find.
Yeah, that's kind of like, it's kind of strange that when I play against Storm with Jeskai, I feel like they have inevitability. Like I am a deck that has to do something because eventually they will draw enough divinations that to kill me through like overload my mana. So against Storm, you just have to slam ring on 4, have Force of Negation, hope that this one Force of Negation is enough to survive this turn, untap and just draw.
Enough,
and just draw enough cards to counter everything later on, or you just hope that you can chain counter spells for long enough to escape Flage with Arena of Glory and just 12 your opponent, and that's enough. But yeah, I think the best way of maximizing your win rate with Storm is you have to really invest into the deck. If you want to play Storm and Energy, fuck you. You have to buy 8 Arid Messas. You put 4 of them into Energy, 4 of them into Storm, and you shove it in the end of your drawer with magic cards. You never take it out for anything, to look at it, to switch some cards. No. It just stays in that drawer until your spider sense is telling you, I think today might be raining. Today is a good day for Storm. And you go to your drawer, you take it out from your drawer, and you win this 7-person RCQ that you wanted to always win. Because nobody is expecting you. Nobody. And I think, otherwise, it's like, okay, if you are a Storm one trick, then you just play Storm and have your 50% win rate or 34% win rate even if you are like really, really good with the deck. But yeah, it's not a deck you can play week in and week out and expect to do well constantly.
Yeah. Okay. Number 9 of the list is Living End. And this is outside Goryo and the last deck on the list, but not that much. But this and Goryo are the only 2 decks that survive the MH3 without adding too many MH3 cards to the mix. Why Living End is still around? That's the good question. And despite playing it at a PT, I'm not very sure why it's that. Like, my assumption is that the deck is really good at doing its own thing. Like, because you have 8 Cascade spells, there's a 1-card combo, and you are designed to have cyclers into Cascade, you will nearly always have this Living End effect. So you will wrap the board, you will put 3, 4, sometimes 5 creatures to play, and hope that's enough. And that's the first aspect. It's very stable at what doing. It's also very stable at doing something to the opponent. It's not like locking them out of the game, but if you have your somewhat fast clock and have 2 discards, Grief before Living End and Grief after Living End, then you will break opponent's synergies and win somehow. If opponent tries to do powerful things like, for example, like 10-3 One Ring, and you just phone it, then maybe your creatures that you have left are enough, yeah? Or if the opponent plays just a heavy creature deck, for example, plays Energy, and like creature into 2 creatures into more creatures, and you wrap them, you just win. So it's a strange combination of having versatile white answers that are for 0 mana, and having a good strategy somewhat to clock. The problem is that there are some matchups that are, let's say, unsolvable. For example, Jeskai. You can win, but it's super hard. If they have 4 counterspell for Force of Negation, then Flage and One Ring and other stuff, and Consigns post sideboard, then it's hard. And then, like, the problem is that Living End doesn't have any great tools to stop it. If you happen to play against Jeskai Ring, you lose. And that's something that's hard to get. To some extent, you can beat Blue-Black Murktide, for example, because then Endurance can be somewhat good, and you can play a flash game, and that can happen against Blue-Black, but it won't work against Jeskai Ring.
That's what I said earlier, that Flage invalidates those games. Like,
exactly.
it was a good plan against Blue-White before MH3, out of Living End. Like, I lost a good amount of games to just Endurance and Subtlety beats, and now you just, okay, flash in your Subtlety, I'll kill it and gain 3 life, I guess.
Yeah, and that, sure, you still keep 2 mana, you play Consign with Replicate, and
sometimes you're like, okay, I have to fetch and shock and cycle Street Wraith, and my opponent played Flage because they have nothing going on, just ping my face. And what? I'm casting Living End now, and my opponent surveilled another Flage to the graveyard, and I'm on 2 life because those Flage just gets back from Living End.
Yeah, like once you let Flage resolve for the first time, you should expect that you lose 6 per life, because it will come back from Living End and come back from the escape. Unless you have Subtlety later on, it can happen, or Endurance. I started playing Manic Endurance, and it's
that really sounds like a good idea, yeah.
Because we are in the Flage meta that also has Goryo and Storm around, so it's worth
and
doing.
It's good against Murktide as well.
Yeah, it's good.
I think it's just a reasonable card.
Yeah, it's the best what we can have, because there aren't any better cards to play a flash game, and you absolutely need to do something on their turn, on end of their turn 3 with your 3 mana.
Yeah, to take the mana.
So to either force them to tap out or to attack from different angle. And that's that. The question is Living End a good deck to play an RCQ? It depends. If you expect to play against a lot of energy, I think Necro is also a fine matchup. I think Trons are 50-50, depends on how many hate cards they play. But nowadays they are not playing like Trinisphere Cherry's main deck. It's not the times. So it should be somewhat okay. It also has like 55-45 against Storm. Like I feel slightly ahead, but not that much. It's a solid choice. If you expect to play against Jeskai or Goryo, I would not play Living End. There's one also thing I would like to comment is Inevitable Betrayal. I recently started siding out Living Ends and siding in Betrayals to steal opponents' Highmakers. When I'm playing against, for example, Eldrazi through the bridge and I like steal Emrakul, that's a fun way to win games. Or when I'm playing against Goryo, which is traditionally a super bad matchup because they just discard Atraxa and you just can't. You have to rely that you'll have a graveyard hate, attack their hand because they have counter magic, stop their Teferi, and have your Cascade. That's a lot to ask for. It's much easier to ignore their graveyard, steal their Atraxa or Griselbrand, draw a bunch of cards, has a lot of disruption, and kill them with the big creature. And somehow that works. Not all the time. If for game 3, if they know what's coming, they can sometimes switch the plans, but then you can switch back to Living End. And that's a cool
yeah, but they can't really switch their plan completely, right?
They can't. But for example, Tron players can. I had the game when I played turn 2 Inevitable Betrayal, kept it, and played again on turn 3, and opponent sided out all Ulamog, like it was a Eldrazi Tron. They sided out Ulamog, Sister's Hunger, and every other thing. So I had to grab the War of Destiny.
But
And
it's still a 6/6 that will kill them in like a couple turns, right?
Yeah, but they can play.
It's worse
Veil
than
of-
Living End, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's tricky, and I feel it's good enough against Goryo and Tron to consider.
Yeah, I like
it,
that.
and also,
I like that
also-
tech. It's
also,
pretty good, I think.
it's a mirror killer. If you play Betrayal and the opponent is playing Living End, you can't lose, really. Because they are Living Ending, so they are also returning your cycling creatures, so it's like symmetrical. But if you cascade ever, you will keep endurancing them with their endurances. So you will always be ahead on the board and ahead of the amount of cyclers in the graveyard.
That's so fucked up, Sodek. That's so good. It's insane.
Easy.
And I guess if Amulet comes back, it's also something you can do against Amulet.
Against Amulet, I think Living End as a plan is
Okay.
enough.
Because I saw some like new Amulet lists, like with Malevolent Rumble and Shifting Woodlands, with some amount of self-mill. I know that Canister was trying like Aftermath Analyst and the new 6/6 bear Luna, I think it's called, that
If
or
that's the
Lura,
case, then-
that like do the same thing as Analyst, just returns all the lands. But yeah, okay. Enough about Living End. Let's move to the last deck on our list, which is Prowess. And there are a big, like most Prowess lists are mono red with a light green splash. They're not like.
And by mono red, we mean there's a like it looks strange because they are like two decks combined together. You have a Prowess team. You have like Monastery Swift Spear, this 2-mana guy.
Slickshot show off.
Yeah, Slickshot and like and Battle Spells. And you also have Amp Raptor and Amulet and Galvanic Discharge as an energy team. And they are like strangely combined together and it somehow works, but I'm not sure if the energy package is that great.
You have this list, and you also have the Brian Boss's list that he fucked Sodek up with at the PT. The Assault Strobe, scale up, like infect, like Prowess, but it's really infect deck, which I think like has some merits. It's very glass cannony, but it's also gotta go fast. And if your plan is to be just faster than your opponents, it's a very good place to be. It might be the fastest deck in the format, even though it's very, very glass cannony at the same time.
This mono red with Amp Raptor has 0 cards to target your own creatures, while this red green Brian Boss, right?
Yes.
Brian Boss style has 8 or 9 of these cards.
I think you still play Mutagenic Groves with Amp Raptor, right? Or
yes,
not?
okay, sorry.
Yeah,
but Mutagenic is for 0 mana and you can just wait until it's somewhat safe to play it, yeah?
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, like Prowess is around. Prowess is trying to do things. Prowess is probably losing to Flage.
Yes,
so
Prowess is losing to Flage very badly.
It should have a tough time against both Energy and Jeskai. But on the other hand, the deck that kills you fast and has some form of grind will never be a terrible choice, in my opinion.
I think you are very bad against, or like maybe not very bad, but I think you are bad against Flage. So Energy and Jeskai are unfavored for you, but you are roughly close or better against everything else. Because like
you should destroy Tron.
Against Necro in theory it's card draw plus removal, but also their card drawing engine costs them life. So
you are forcing them to have nuts to
basically
do anything. Yeah. Against Living End, it's like I feel that Living End is advantage, but you have Cyber to solve it. You have Tormund Script, Blood Moon.
Yeah, it's similarly against Goryo, right? Like I think you are disadvantaged game 1 as a Prowess deck, but post board, if you draw your one interactive card in Tormund Script or whatever else you need for the matchup, I think you are advantaged.
And have a clock.
Yeah, like if you have your regular draw, but instead of one Mutagenic, you have Tormund Script or something, then I think you are advantaged once again. I think you should be advantaged against the Murktide deck, the blue-black Murktide deck. That was my impression when I played a bit with our friend Franek. And that's mostly because you only have 4 fatal pushes and no other like 1 mana removal. And blue-red Murktide used to have more than 1. So that was significantly different. I think Storm is in the same boat as Goryo and Living End. If you don't have hate, you are slower, but if you have hate, you can beat them. Yeah. Just, I think, a deck that's overall pretty, like, it's pretty okay across the board, but loses to Flage, which makes it a not very good choice, I think.
Okay, so to wrap it up, the current top 10 of the modern format is tier 0 Nadu. Okay.
Tier 0 is Nadu. And it's, I guess it's top 0. Yeah, it is not in a top 10. It's
Honorable
above,
mention.
It's above top 10. And then we have Energy, both Boros and Mardu, and Jeskai Ring as 2 most popular decks. Then I think closely trailing them is Goryo. And then we have a bit bigger of a gap to Necro, various Eldrazi Temple decks, blue-black Murktide, and then Storm, Living, and Prowess.
That's
Okay.
your top 10. And we hope that you'll get your RCQ win this season. If you want to get better, if you want to prepare, check out our website, mysticalteachings.com. There are a lot of new articles coming about these new decks. Some new, some not new. Jeskai is already up. Living End will be soon. We also know there will be Energy, Necro. I also work on either Eldrazi or Storm. I'm not sure which one I would main. And if you want to see some other articles,
maybe we'll get Ardos. Maybe we'll get Ardos to write about Twiddlestorm, his new love. Who knows?
Maybe.
Who knows? Okay, and we'll see you all again in about a month's time when Nadu gets banned with another video to sum up everything that's happened for that month. Until then, thanks so much for watching our content as always. You can find all links in the description. As per usual, our website, our Twitch streams, our Twitters, we are on YouTube, so you won't find our YouTube links. And once again, the best way of supporting us, if you want to do more than just subscribing and all the regular YouTube shit, is go to Mystical Teachings, sign up for our content.
Read, comment in our Discord channel.
Yes.
How good.
Come to our Discord and talk with us, because we, for the most part, love talking with you about Magic. That's why we are doing that for the living, because we want to share our takes and learn from other people as well. So yeah, thanks so much for watching our content as always. Hope you'll have a very good August in your Nadu infested RCQs, and we'll see you by the end of it. Thanks, goodbye, and take care.
See ya.